The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Have you ever wondered if there's something wrong with you? That quiet ache, the sense that you're just not enough. Does it follow you from room to room? You're not alone. Studies show that more than half of young adults report feeling inadequate at least once a week. Teenagers, too, over 60%, say they're dissatisfied with themselves or their bodies. We live in a world that whispers, sometimes shouts, that we're broken. From the first day at school, we're measured, compared, and sorted. A test score, a teacher's frown, a parent's sigh. These moments plant seeds of doubt. Did you ever get a grade that made you feel like you'd never measure up? Or hear a sibling praised for something you struggled to do? Maybe you felt invisible at home, or like your best was never quite enough. Research shows that a warm, supportive family builds self-esteem, but even small moments of criticism or neglect can leave deep marks. Self-worth starts early. By age 10, many kids have already decided if they're good or bad at life. If you grew up with high expectations or constant comparison, you might have learned to see yourself as a problem to fix, not a person to know. But here's the truth. Feeling broken is not proof that you are. It's often a sign that you're trying to fit into someone else's mold. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." What if your discomfort isn't a defect but a signal? A sign that you're walking a path that doesn't match your true nature. Think of Maria, a talented artist pushed into finance. Her anxiety and depression weren't signs of failure, but of a stifled soul. Or the executive with the perfect job, who wakes up each day feeling hollow inside. These aren't rare stories. A recent survey found that 70% of adults feel they're not living up to their potential. Jung believed that what we call brokenness is often the soul's protest against a life that isn't ours. He called it the persona, the mask we wear to fit in, to please, to survive. But when we mistake that mask for our true self, emptiness grows. The world rewards the mask, good grades, promotions, likes on a post. But inside, the gap widens between who we are and who we pretend to be. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the stress of living out of alignment with our values. Over time, it feels less like discomfort and more like being fundamentally flawed. But science tells a different story. Self-esteem and mental well-being are deeply connected. When you see your worth, your life satisfaction rises, your mind becomes healthier. The opposite is true too. Low self-worth breeds anxiety, depression, even physical illness. So where did this story of brokenness begin for you? Was it a single moment or 1,000 tiny ones? Did it come from a parent, a teacher, a friend, or maybe just the culture around you? Social media, advertising, and even well-meaning adults often reinforce the idea that we need fixing. But Jung's insight cuts through the noise. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. You are not broken. You may just be following a path that isn't yours. There's a difference between being broken and being lost. Being broken means you're beyond repair. Being lost means you're searching for your way. Jung warned us not to follow blindly, but to carve our own path, to listen to the wisdom inside us. He called this process individuation, becoming who you truly are, not who the world expects you to be. So what if your struggle is not a sign of weakness, but a call to find your own direction? What if your so-called failures are simply detours, not dead ends? The data is clear. People who build self-worth and follow their own path report higher happiness, better health, and deeper satisfaction. The journey begins by questioning the story you've been told about yourself. Ask yourself, whose path am I walking? Whose voice is shaping my choices? Are you living for approval or for authenticity? Jung believed that true peace comes from inside, not from fitting in, but from integrating all parts of yourself, even the ones you hide. So the next time you feel broken, pause. Ask, is this pain a flaw or a signal? Is it pointing me away from myself or back home? You're not broken. You're just being called to find your own way. And that journey, the one only you can take, is the beginning of becoming whole. Let's go back to where it all began. Childhood. Those early years shape so much more than we realize. Psychologists say our core beliefs are mostly set before age 7. Think about that. Before you even understood the world, you were deciding who you were. Maybe you remember a parent's proud smile when you did well, or maybe you remember the disappointment when you didn't. Expectations can feel like invisible weights on small shoulders. Some parents want the best for us, but their hopes can become our pressure. Why can't you be more like your brother? If only you tried harder. These words echo long after childhood ends. Research shows that children who feel compared to siblings often struggle with self-esteem as adults. Social comparison starts early, in the classroom, on the playground, even at home. Did you ever look at someone else and wonder why you weren't like them? Maybe you wished you were smarter, faster, or just more lovable. The first time you got a bad grade, did it feel like a small failure or a big shame? Maybe you lost a friend or were left out of a game. These moments seem small, but they leave lasting marks. The mind is like wet cement in childhood. Every word, every look leaves an impression. Psychological studies call this the power of early narratives. The stories we hear about ourselves become the stories we tell ourselves. If you were called difficult, did you start to believe it? If you were praised only for winning, did you fear losing? Maybe you learned to hide your feelings, thinking they were too much for others. Or you became the peacemaker, always putting others first. Each role you played was a way to survive, to belong. But sometimes, those roles become cages. Over time, the outside voices become your inner voice. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. If I try, I'll just fail. These beliefs are not facts. They're echoes of old moments. Studies show that negative self-talk is linked to anxiety and depression later in life. The hidden voice inside you might not even be yours. It might be a parent's worry, a teacher's criticism, a friend's rejection, but it sounds like your own. Jung called this the inner child, the part of you that still feels small and vulnerable. The inner child remembers every wound, every slight, every unmet need. Even as adults, those old hurts can drive our choices. Have you ever reacted strongly to something small and wondered why? That's your inner child, still hoping to be seen and loved. Jung believed that healing begins when we listen to that child within, not to judge, but to understand. Imagine the first time you felt left out. What did you start telling yourself? I don't belong. Or maybe, if I was different, they'd like me. These beliefs become the lens through which you see the world. They shape your friendships, your risks, your dreams. If you learned that love is conditional, you might spend your life trying to earn it. If you learned that mistakes are shameful, you might fear trying new things. These patterns are not your fault. They're the result of early programming. But awareness is the first step to change. Studies show that people who explore their childhood stories are more likely to break free from limiting beliefs. You can rewrite the script, but first, you have to read it. What did you start telling yourself after that first rejection? Did you decide you were unworthy or just unlucky? Did you become a perfectionist or did you stop trying altogether? The inner child learns to protect itself in whatever way it can. But those protections can become prisons. Jung said, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So much of what you struggle with now began as a way to survive back then. The wounds of childhood are not your fault, but healing them is your responsibility. You can't change the past, but you can change the story you tell about it. The first step is to notice the voice inside you. Whose voice is it? What is it saying? Is it helping you or holding you back? Jung believed that by meeting your inner child with compassion, you begin to heal, not by blaming, but by understanding. Not by erasing the pain, but by giving it a new meaning. The roots of your struggle are deep, but so is your capacity for growth. You are not broken. You are carrying old wounds that want to be seen. When you listen to those wounds, you start to find your true voice. And that voice can lead you to a different path. One that is yours, not someone else's. One that honors your story, not your scars. The journey begins by turning inward, by asking, what did I need back then that I can give myself now? Jung taught that wholeness comes from embracing every part of your story, even the parts that hurt, even the parts you wish you could forget, because those parts are still you. And when you bring them into the light, you begin to heal. The roots of your struggle are not a life sentence. They are the beginning of your awakening. You can choose a new story. You can choose a new path. And you can begin, right now, with compassion for the child you once were. That child is still inside you, waiting to be heard. And when you listen, you start to become whole. Sometimes the biggest drama in life is not what happens to us, but how we betray ourselves. Self-betrayal is when you know what you need, but you keep saying yes to what drains you instead. You stay in the job that numbs you, the relationship that shrinks you, the routine that keeps you small. Every time you ignore your best interests, you chip away at your own confidence. It starts small, skipping the gym, not applying for the promotion, letting your dreams gather dust. Over time, these small acts become a pattern, a cycle of joyless comfort and quiet regret. You might tell yourself you're just being realistic, but deep down, you feel the ache of self-betrayal. It's like living with a low-grade fever, never sick enough to collapse, never well enough to thrive. Why do we do this? Often, it's because we get attached to potential instead of reality. We fall in love with what could be, not what is. Potential is seductive. It's a blank canvas where we can paint any dream we want. Reality, on the other hand, asks us to face the truth of where we are. It's easier to chase the fantasy than to accept the limits or messiness of real life. Sometimes, we set goals that look impressive but don't match who we really are. We chase what others admire, not what our soul desires. These illusionary goals keep us stuck, always striving, never arriving. The stress builds, but so does the emptiness. You might wonder, am I alone in feeling this way? The answer is no. Most of us are ready for change, but fear, finances, and lack of confidence hold us back. This sense of being trapped spills over into every part of life, work, relationships, even our sense of self. Why do we stay stuck even when we know we're unhappy? Psychology calls it self-sabotage. We become our own biggest obstacle, often without realizing it. Fear of success, fear of failure, and low self-esteem all play a part. Sometimes we sabotage ourselves because we don't believe we deserve happiness or success. Other times, we're just afraid of the unknown. Better the familiar pain than unfamiliar freedom. This inner conflict keeps us in limbo, never fully failing, never fully living. Self-sabotage is a form of self-betrayal, convincing ourselves we don't really want what we know would help us. We procrastinate, avoid, or make choices that keep us small. These are not just bad habits. They're clues to deeper wounds. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject or hide. The shadow holds our shame, our anger, our unmet needs. It's the part of us that says, you can't, you shouldn't, you're not enough. Most of us try to outrun our shadow, but it always catches up. The more we ignore it, the more it shapes our choices from the dark. The cost of ignoring your true path is high. You may have success on the outside, but feel empty on the inside. You might have a stable life, but carry a sadness that never leaves. It shows up as fatigue that rest can't fix, anxiety with no clear cause, or a sense that life is happening to you, not with you. Relationships repeat the same painful patterns. You chase new beginnings, but end up in the same old endings. Each cycle is a message from your soul. You're drifting from your center. The more you betray yourself, the harder it is to trust your own choices. You lose touch with your core identity, and decisions feel confusing or impossible. Authentic connections suffer because you're hiding your real self. The shadow grows stronger the longer you ignore it. But here's the truth. The shadow is not your enemy. It's a messenger asking you to reclaim the parts you've left behind. When you begin to face your shadow, you start to break the cycle. You see the old patterns for what they are, survival strategies, not life sentences. You realize that chasing the wrong goals is not a failure, but a sign you're ready for something real. The first step is to notice where you feel most stuck. Ask yourself, am I living for potential or for reality? Am I setting goals that fit my values or someone else's expectations? What parts of myself have I rejected, and why? The journey forward means turning toward your shadow, not away from it. It means forgiving yourself for the ways you've betrayed your own needs. It means giving up the fantasy of potential for the gift of reality. When you do, you start to reclaim your power. You stop running in circles and begin walking your own path. The trap of the wrong path is real, but so is the freedom of finding your own way. You are not broken. You are just being called back to yourself. The cost of ignoring your true path is too high to pay any longer. Listen to the signals, the restlessness, the sadness, the cycles that repeat. They are not punishments. They are invitations. Invitations to stop betraying yourself and start honoring who you really are. The shadow is not darkness to fear, but a guide to your wholeness. When you embrace it, you begin to heal. When you heal, you start to live. And when you live true to yourself, you finally feel free. This is the turning point. The moment you choose your own path over the one drawn for you. The moment you stop chasing potential and start living in reality. The moment you welcome every part of yourself, even the ones you once rejected. The moment you realize you were never broken. You were just waiting to come home to yourself. The journey out of the trap begins with a single honest step. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What am I afraid to face? What am I ready to reclaim? Your shadow holds the answer, your soul holds the map, and your next choice can set you free. You are not broken, you are just ready to walk your true path. There comes a moment when everything just stops working. Maybe it's the morning you wake up exhausted, even after a full night's sleep, or the day you realize your ambition has turned into emptiness. Burnout isn't just tiredness. It's feeling like you've lost your spark, your purpose, even yourself. You might start to wonder if you'll ever feel whole again. Burnout creeps in quietly, stage by stage. First, excitement and drive, then stress, then chronic exhaustion, and finally, a sense of defeat. You feel trapped, helpless, and alone, even in a crowded room. Sometimes, it's heartbreak that cracks you open. Heartbreak isn't just emotional. It can make your body ache, your chest tighten, your heart literally hurt. Science calls it broken heart syndrome. Your body floods with stress hormones, and you feel like you can't go on. Grief, loss, or even a failed dream can trigger this cascade. You might feel anxious, confused, or even ashamed of your pain. Crisis isn't just a word. It's a state where your old ways of coping stop working. Suddenly, you're making decisions you don't understand, feeling emotions you can't control. You wonder, how did I get here? The truth is, most people hit a breaking point at least once in life. It's the moment you realize the path you're on isn't really yours. Maybe you chose it for approval, or out of fear, or just because it was there. But now, every step feels heavier, every day a little less bright. You try to push through, but the exhaustion only deepens. Your mind starts to rebel. You know something isn't right, but you keep pretending. This is where psychology gives us a name: cognitive dissonance. It's the mental stress that comes from living out of alignment with your true self. You hold two conflicting beliefs. I should be happy, but I'm not. This is what I wanted, but I feel empty. The discomfort grows. You try to justify, rationalize, or ignore it, but it only gets louder. You might even start to question your own worth. Cognitive dissonance isn't just uncomfortable, it's exhausting. It drains your energy, clouds your decisions, and erodes your self-esteem. But here's the hidden gift. Dissonance is a signal, not a sentence. It's your mind's way of saying something needs to change. This is the beginning of awakening. The pain pushes you to look in the mirror, not just at your face, but at your life. Honest self-reflection is hard. It means asking, what do I really want? Whose dream am I chasing? This is where the journey turns inward. You start to take a personal inventory, looking at your strengths, your wounds, your patterns. You notice what energizes you and what drains you. You see the stories you've been telling yourself and the ones you want to rewrite. Reflection isn't about blame, it's about clarity. It's about seeing yourself honestly, without judgment. You begin to accept that you are made of many parts. Some strong, some scared, some hopeful, some hurt. Integration means welcoming all these parts, not just the ones you like. You learn to be curious about your feelings, not critical. You practice kindness toward your mistakes, not shame. You honor your needs instead of denying them. This is the work of becoming whole. Carl Jung called it individuation, the lifelong process of integrating every part of yourself, conscious and unconscious. It's not about being perfect, but about being real. Individuation is the journey of becoming who you truly are, not just who you're expected to be. It's about finding meaning and purpose, even in your pain. You realize you don't have to reject any part of yourself to be worthy of love. Every experience, every emotion, every mistake has something to teach you. The power of self-reflection is that it turns pain into wisdom. The mirror doesn't just show you what's wrong, it shows you what's possible. When you accept all parts of yourself, you become free to walk your own path. This is how you begin to feel whole again, by becoming, at last, fully yourself.